Welcome to Zoom In, Zoom Out, your look at news from Taiwan and around the world. I'm Joyce Tseng, coming to you from New York City for this special episode. The U.S. presidential election is right around the corner and a lot is at stake. Domestically, issues from the economy to immigration and abortion have been fiercely debated this election cycle between Republican candidate Donald Trump and Democratic candidate Kamala Harris. The U.S. has long been known as a melting pot, home to people from a range of different backgrounds and cultures. Now, to better understand what these diverse communities need in a leader, I spoke to State Senator Iwen Chu. She's a Taiwanese American journalist turned politician and has represented New York's 17th state district since January 2023. She's the first Asian woman to be elected to the New York State Senate in its over 2 centuries old history. We began the conversation zooming in to her personal background.
20 years ago, I came here as an international student. Of course, I didn't foresee myself 20 years ago to step on this route for this direction. So with all the capacity, being an immigrant myself, being a journalist, to foresee every challenge, every sad stories, and then become a staffer, that angle for me is how can I help them? That puts me in that kind of mindset. And now with this platform for me being their representative in the state level, I'm their senators. I want to do more. I want to do prevention because I already see the challenge. I know where to navigate the system, how to get the resource, how to prevent become the priority of how I can serve this community better. That's why in my office, we speak 13 different languages. So being an immigrant, the worst thing is you're in life struggle. At the moment, you're vulnerable, you need help. You don't know how to open your mouth. You don't know how to let people know what was your challenge, what was the issue. And that's why my commitment is we speak your language. I want you to come into this office. When you need help, when you're looking for help, then me speak your language. We will do the translation. Remember, I was a reporter. My job is to do the translation. I will navigate the system, I'll navigate the issues, I will translate. That was part of my job. And became a staffer. That was my job, to identify issues and navigate issue and resolve the issue. That was my job. And that's how I use the same mentality with my office team over here. This is how we're gonna serve, and this is how we prioritize people's voice.
And what are the main issues or concerns that come up when you're engaging with your constituents?
So my district is majority predominantly immigrant communities. My district is the first AAPI Asian majority district, a senatorial district. But when you talk about AAPI, it's not just East Asian. I have East Asian, South Asian, Central Asian. I have Uzbekistan, I have Bangladesh. I have all different diverse Asian. So they come with the different issues in that angle as well. So for me to serve, to address their issues, and also that's 50%. I have another 20% of Latino families. I represent the largest Muslim communities. I also have Jewish, Italian, Russian. I have all those immigrant community. Basically, we're talking about the same thing. They want safety. How do they feel safe on the street? How do they feel safe in their school? How do they feel safe when they practice their religions? They need to feel safe when they're going to grocery and shopping. They need to feel safe when they're going to the park to just take a walk with their friends. That's why my legislation priorities going towards safety, public safety, not just about police presence. They need to feel safe when they're taking subways going to work. They need to feel safe when they send their kids going to school. I introduced a package of e-bike safety bills. So our seniors need to feel safe when they're walking on the sidewalk. When we see those e-bikes, scooters, they're riding on the sidewalk, it's against law. We need some enforcement. And there's way too many cases in my district. The battery, they're under-regulated. So they are those cheap kind, the faulty kind, the recycled kind, they're exploding everywhere throughout the New York City, especially in my district. So I have those legislation and the governor already signed into law. It's a law now.
And as a leader in a predominantly immigrant community, what do you make of the discourse around immigration now in the U.S.?
So it's very simple. We're here, we're in the US, we're Americans. There's a fundamental value over here. We're here for democracy, we're here for freedom, we're here for human rights. No matter what kind of background you are, no matter what kind of immigration policy, that's a federal when we talk about border issues. However, when people are in here locally, they are my constituents. It is my mission to make sure they are protected, treated fairly, equally. There's no discrimination. And how I can prioritize government resource and legislation to protect the diversity of New York City. That is something I can put my hands down and make sure that we can implement those.
It's been a fiercely debated topic this election cycle. What do you make of the rhetoric around this issue?
It's not as hard when we talk about it's New York City. That's the whole diversity this city is about, the beauty of this city. But there's a lot of misinformation, especially on social media. That's something we need to overcome. We need to regulate those. And also when we talk about not just like social media, there's a different opponents of issues. So media has the social responsibility. How we can be a gatekeeper to make sure our audience, our constituents, they receive the accurate facts. And that's something we need to, do a lot of education, do a lot of great groundwork to make sure our constituents, when they're going through those information on social media, they have the right judgment, be able to evaluate and pick the value they truly believe instead of being manipulated by the false information.
What do you hope the future of US politics looks like?
Well, the future politics or the future society gonna look like it's up to the people. This is people's country. So people has grown up grassroots, they are empowered by voting to pick the right leader, to pick the voice that represent them in different tiers, different level of government. People make the choice. People have the power to make the decision. That's why as long as we can provide the accurate information based on fact, people make their own choice. And that's the future and that's the hope. And how do we engage our next generation? That's another thing. Because when we talk about futures, in 10, 15 years, it's gonna be a new flock of new leaders. They will lead our society, they will lead our countries. And they need to be ready. Like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I was able to serve on the staffer for the state government assembly member. I learned so much from that position. I was ready because of that opportunity. And we need to, as a leader over here, especially I'm the first Asian woman senators. I'm the only woman senator, Asian woman senators in the whole state, 248 years now. It is my mission to make sure our next generation, they have the opportunity, they have the platform, they have the training, be able to be ready for when the opportunity is there, when we need a new leaders, they need to be ready. And this is my job to cultivate them, to train them, to educate them, to provide the platform for them.
Something Taiwan and the US share is their commitment to democratic values. With your experiences living in both Taiwan and the US, what do you think are some things that they can learn from one another? And also, what can the US perhaps do to advance its democracy?
In Taiwan, it's direct vote, like majority of the vote pick the president. Over here, we have electoral, we have delegates. It's a different system. So there's no way to literally compare, right? They're not apple oranges, it's just different. But there's one thing we can put more engagement about voting turnout. Over here, even you're a citizen, you don't necessarily become a voter. You need to do one more step to register as a voters. So right now, like now it's election season. We are having calls from the government that, like government side, people are asking where to vote, how to become a voters. There's a lot of civic engagement 101 over here. This is a very important step. How to amplify your voice, how to empower yourself is actually through vote. And my district is actually the lowest turnout district in the whole New York State because the nature of this district. Majority, they're immigrants. So that's also one of the challenges. How do I encourage more voters to filter through the false information, to make the right judgment based on the fact and choose what they believe, and go to vote. That's something the U.S. in general, our voting here, the voting rate is about like 20-30%. In Taiwan, sometimes I know the voting rate is about 60-70%. That's very different, but also it comes with the history of the democracy election history. Over here, people maybe they feel they took it for granted, right? They have the political fatigue. Every year, every other year, my position is every other year. That means I need to run every other year. But that means our voters, every other year, every year, there's a city election, there's a state election, there's federal election, and there's a judges. And other area, non-New York City, there's a county, there's a water board, there's a school board. It's all different kinds of level of election. So there's easy to become a voter fatigue. So how do we overcome? It's up to, I don't have a perfect answer for that, but that's something as a democracy process, I can only put a hope to the voters. If you don't coming out to vote, that means you're giving up your right, your opportunity to make a difference. And we could only encourage everybody, no matter what you're gonna vote, pick the one you truly believe into it, and that cast your vote, because that's your responsibility for a better future that you believe in.
This consequential election year, State Senator Chu was also appointed to be a Democratic National Convention delegate. The party's presidential candidate, Vice President Kamala Harris, has picked up momentum and record-breaking levels of funding since rising to the top of the ticket in place of President Joe Biden. To zoom out and look at the Democrats and their vision for the country's future, I asked State Senator Chu what Harris's presidential bid means to the party and to Chu personally.
I was very excited to see Kamala Harris to be on the ticket, because first, she's a woman, so absolutely about time for us to elect a woman president. And the second thing is she's a person of AAPI background. That's why for me, as an immigrant, as a woman myself, she's my absolute choice, because I know for her firsthand life experience, she will prioritize on immigrants' needs. She will prioritize on women's issues. She will prioritize to amplify the democratic values. And that's something I believe that. And I would like to see the next generation that can benefit from this. She's not gonna just become a leader of the United States. She's a leader of the world. And that's a value we need to share with the whole world. How we protect our democracy, how we amplify the freedom. Freedom is not fall on the sky for free. Freedom, you need to fight for it. You need to protect it. And that's something I need to make sure I have a political leader who share the same value and true belief in the state government, United States government. They will project our image to the world. So when people look at us, they look at a true leader.
That was New York State Senator Iwen Chu speaking on what Vice President Kamala Harris's bid for the top seat of the White House means to the Democratic Party and to leaders of diverse communities like Chu herself. This has been Zoom In, Zoom Out. Don't forget to check out TaiwanPlus.com or follow us on social media for more of our stories. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.